researchers from the Kibale Chimpanzee Project. This treasure trove of information allows scientists to gain insight into the origins of all kinds of behaviors. But we were particularly interested in sex, aggression, and dominance, which are all affected by the subject of this book, testosterone, or as insiders call it, T. With human subjects, we can just ask them to spit into a tube. But wild chimps are less cooperative, so we measure T in their urine and feces instead. I carefully pipetted what little pee I managed to catch from the plastic bag into test tubes, to be carried back to the field site for later transport back to the endocrinology lab at Harvard. After a few minutes of rustling and relieving, the chimps shimmied down the tree trunks to begin their day, with the field assistants and me in tow. A bully gives a beating. Chimpanzees live in communities, usually comprising about 50 chimps. In some ways, each community is like a group of people living in a small town, with well-defined and defended borders and hostile relationships with the neighboring towns. Emoso was like the mayor, the alpha of this town called Kanyawara. It was just one of several such communities located within the vast forest near the border with the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Emoso was temperamental and despotic, a leader who must have been much more feared than liked. Each day, smaller groups of chimps from the community, called parties, would congregate and spend the day together, and I'd follow one of the parties. When Emoso was part of a party I followed, I could count on lots of grunting, screaming and hooting, threatening, slapping, stick-dragging and throwing, and chest-pounding. There was one sure way to make things even more exciting, and that was to add a fertile, estrus female to the mix. Lots of sex, and even more aggression, as the males competed for the right to mate with her. Other days were punctuated less with bouts of high drama, and more with the ebb and flow of nurturance and play. Little ones would cling and cuddle, nurse, tumble and chase their siblings and friends, or perch like royalty on mom's back as they traveled from one feeding patch to another. Those were the times I followed parties without the adult males. On one January day, Emoso seemed calmer than usual, and on this day, unusually, he decided he'd like to hang out with only one female and her two small children. Leaning against a tall fig tree, I opened my notebook. Otamba sat behind Emoso on a large downed tree in a clearing. She expertly searched through his thick, dark hair, separating and flattening it, examining the area for dirt or parasites, deftly removing what she found and popping the tasty bits into her mouth. The baby, Kilimi, and her older sister, Tenkere, frolicked in a patch of grass in the heat of the equatorial midday sun amid the din of birds and insects. Otamba's ear-piercing screams jolted me out of my tranquil state and sent my heart racing. I bolted upright. Emoso jumped up so that he stood on the fallen tree and began to pound Otamba with his fists while also kicking her. She tumbled to the ground, and tiny Kilimi quickly hopped into the refuge of her arms. Otamba huddled over her daughter in a protective embrace, her back exposed to Emoso's assault. I tried to accurately record all that was happening, who was doing what to whom, and for exactly how long. I was lucky to have been with one of the project's experienced field assistants, John Barwogeza, who gave me a thorough debriefing on all that I had missed. After a few minutes of this brutality, already the longest and most severe beating I'd ever seen, Emoso picked up a large stick and began hitting Otamba's head and back with it. Tenkere, just 3 years old and no more than 2 feet tall, raced around Emoso and pounded at him with her impotent little fists as the giant beat up her mother. But kicking, hitting with fists and sticks wasn't enough. Emoso got even more creative and hung from a branch, leaving his feet free to stomp on and kick her with greater force. 9 stunning minutes later, it was over. The beating left Otamba.